Welcome to the Rising for Women podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Merlo-Booth, and I believe the world will be changed for women when we change how we walk in it. So each week, we're going to have hard conversations. We're going to explore new options. Some of them are going to be hard options, and we're going to have some real straight talk. We're going to do that because I have faith that women can handle it. Welcome to the Rising Podcast for Women with your hosts, Lisa Merlo-Booth, Dee Marcotte, and Arlene Newman. And before we jump into our topic today, we wanted to address some feedback that we got. The feedback we got from someone was pertaining to the conflict avoidant podcast. However, as we were talking, it could really pertain to so many of the topics that we're talking about. And the comment was that, they avoid conflict because they're afraid, because there's a genuine fear that something bad could happen. And they had wished we addressed the fear a little bit more. And so we thought, what a great comment. And fear is present in so many of the topics that we're talking about. And so we want to acknowledge that some of the things that we are asking you all to do, or that we're suggesting that for you all to do, takes tremendous courage. And many of the reasons why you haven't been doing it is because of fear. You've been afraid, either, afraid of how other people are going to respond, afraid that how it's going to look, how people are going to treat you because of it, or afraid of literally for your safety. And so we want to differentiate the safety piece from fear about how people are going to respond, meaning they may be upset, they may, be hurt, or that people may even be angry at you, but your safety is still okay. So fear on the level of, I'm afraid, or even I'm afraid my partner will leave me if I keep doing these things. I'm afraid that I might lose my marriage, which is tremendous. Listen, you all are responsible for your relationships in your life, and we are not living in them. And nor is anybody else. Your in-laws aren't living them. Your parents aren't living your life. Really, you have to do that humble check around, am I willing to take the risk? And that risk may be a loss. And so we always encourage you are the wisest person in your life. So please always check that out. The one line, though, that we take a pretty firm stance on is safety. If you incorporating any of the skills that we're telling you to incorporate would put your relationship at physical risk for safety, meaning if you are in a domestic violence situation, or if you're in a relationship with somebody who is threatening, who is intimidating, they come at you, they have hurt you, or they put your physical safety at risk, don't do the skills that we're talking about. That is not the relationship. We are not at all working on those relationships, because you getting more confident and you getting more assertive in a domestic violence situation will put your health and safety at risk. We do not advocate for that. We just want to note that. That requires you to get involved with women's protective services, a domestic violence, shelter, something, your own individual therapist, but do not incorporate many of the things we're talking about on this broadcast if safety is an issue. Okay, you guys, either one of you want to say anything about fear not related to the safety piece or to the safety? I won't, since our topic today is control and criticism, I will not control what you want to speak. So speak to either one of those. Go ahead.
I just think that we're trying to tell you all about what are steps to take towards making your life and your relationship different. And of course, there are risks and fear in that. And like you were saying, Lisa, you're the one who has to decide. And it is scary. Like once you start changing the relationship, you start changing the relationship and you don't know what's going to happen. And so it is scary.
And you need support. You need support to deal with the fear. Fear underlies a lot of the dysfunctional things that we do, and having the right support can be extremely helpful in being able to make a change.
Okay. So thank you for the feedback, everybody. We love feedback. Give us as much as you want, good, bad, and the ugly. We don't care. We will try to incorporate it. And now on to the show. So today's topic is women in criticism. And in particular, women who are often critical of others, not necessarily taking in criticism themselves. That's a whole different topic. So women in criticism. Okay, let's start. What are our thoughts? Where do we see women go wrong with criticism? Or let's give them a little picture of what we're talking about when we say women in criticism. What are some of the things you guys are seeing in your office with quote unquote critical women? How's it showing up?
I think what I hear a lot of is like we're saying critical. I think we could in some ways also say judgmental. I think there's
They go together. They definitely go
thing that goes together about just like I look at you, whoever you are, and how you're doing it or what you're doing, and not, I might not even say it to the person. Sometimes maybe it's definitely not to the person, but instead I'm saying it to my friend, or I'm saying it in my head where I'm going like, oh my God, can you believe that he or she, gained weight, or said that to their kid, or whatever it happens to be. And I'm like, I think one of the places it definitely shows up is also sort of, I think comparison comes with it too. I'm going to look what I do, and I'm going to criticize you,
right,
because you're doing it differently.
In my experience, many women who are really critical and judgy of others are ultra critical and judgmental of themselves. And it often comes from that insecure, perfectionistic place. Yeah, that it's a constant, well, I'm a little bit better than her. I'm not as heavy as her, or I'm not as, dumb as her, or I'm not as whatever. Or my husband's better looking, or my husband, like it's a constant, if I'm a little bit better than I'm good in this moment, if I'm not as good as, or as wise as, or as whatever, then I start feeling less than. And it's a constant, it's just a constant comparison and judgment. Am I enough? Am I not enough? Are they enough? Are they not enough? And oh my goodness, that could wreak havoc in the person who's critical life, obviously, because you're constantly judging yourself, and certainly in the lives of people around them.
Well, what I was thinking about when we were choosing this topic was women that don't know how to ask for what they want directly, and don't know how to express their anger directly, and they use criticism as a way of letting their partner know how unhappy they are. So instead of being able to ask for what they want, they'll criticize them for not doing it. And so it does not get them what they want. Usually on the receiving end, the partner just feels criticized, and then they shut down and not really getting the message. So it's just a very ineffective way of trying to be heard and trying to get what you want.
the thing that came up is for me, as you were talking about that, is a lot of times it's kind of like the woman will complain. The guy finally does something that is exactly what she asked for. And what she says instead of thank you is, well, you don't usually do that.
Right.
But you didn't do this part. Or like,
Exactly.
where's
Yeah.
the thank you piece? Like
Yeah.
like Terry says, dare to receive,
Because it's not about that, because it's not really about that. It's all about the anger and the all the unfulfilled wishes that are unsaid.
Right.
Well, and the other thing for that criticism piece, what happens is it starts chipping away. If you're always looking, so they load the dishwasher, but you don't like the way they loaded it. Well, then it starts happening. What happens is they're like, forget it, do it your way.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, many women will say, I'll just do it.
Mhm.
Right? I'll just take care of it. And so that critical piece, the more you start criticizing others about how they're doing something or what they're doing or whatever, it doesn't feel light in your relationship anymore. It feels like there's a constant, oh my gosh, like a little bit of walking on eggshells around you. And you want to, yeah. So that piece, you want to start looking at, like, how is that serving you? What's the cost of you being critical? What's the cost of you judging others all the time? What's the cost, not only of you judging others, but also you judging yourself? What's happening there? How is that impacting your relationship? Is it bringing you closer to them? Is it bringing you further away? Are you getting less angry with them? Are you getting more angry? Like, start slowing that down and paying attention. I know, like, when I was growing up, we used to tease my mom. Well, now that we're older, we tease my mom, but my mom, she would be like, oh, your hair's, have you cut it lately at all? like, hi mom, I haven't seen her in 7 months. I'm like, oh mom, it's so good to see you. Oh, you put on weight, didn't you? I'm like, oh my God, mom. Like, right. And so then, fortunately she'll do it to my sisters too. So it's like, we really laugh. We're like, holy cow. And it's just the lens. And so if you tend to be critical, you have that lens. It's a critical lens, and you're always looking at what's a little bit off. So your kids get, 3 A's and 1 B, and you're like, why'd you get a B? Instead of being like, oh my God, you rocked it, 3 A's, And so it really is that when you first see somebody, are you sizing them up, and are you being like, oh, those colors don't go together, or, oh, look at, and
I do that.
yeah. We all do on some, it can,
Why can't they get those colors right? Isn't it obvious to get those colors
right?
right?
Oh my gosh, we do that, and it's in our heads, and not all of us do it, but it can it's an easy thing to fall into. And I'd love what you guys think, but I think a big part of that is cultural messages for women is that we have to be perfect. We have to have it together. We got to always look good. We always have to, we have to know the answers. And so I don't know, there's this way where we start, that's not how it's done. That is how it's done. That looks pretty. That doesn't look good. And we're constantly, living up to this idea that we have to be perfect and we have to have it all right. And so should everybody else. And if they don't, we get to tell them, because we're helping them.
Right. Well,
Dress in those colors. Like, what? You can't go out in that. What do you think? People are going to make fun of you. You can't do that. And so, yeah, we get wrapped up in that a little bit.
I think what's also really important to notice is it getting you anywhere? Is the person that you're giving the feedback to, are they taking it, or are they beginning to distance themselves from you because they feel bad? They feel like you're critical.
Right. And you got to be careful, because they probably are taking it initially. Right. And then especially if it's like, you know, you're dating somebody and they're so happy and you're like, oh, why don't you put on that sweater? Oh, I think these jeans look better. And so they're doing these things for you. But then there will be a time where they start to get resentful and they start to lessen and they start to be like, no, I don't like that. And so you got to recognize that shift. If they're taking it at first, watch for when that stops and it starts becoming more contentious.
Do you think
Right.
there's a piece of what I would call personal accountability? Like, I'm actually having a feeling of some kind. Like, if you have the wrong colors or those jeans are better, it's because I'm having a sense of embarrassment or something like that.
Love
So
that.
instead of speaking from, you know, I'm going to make myself crazy if you put those two colors together, I just criticize you instead, or, you know, whatever anxiety comes up for me if you don't put the dishes in the dishwasher right, or whatever it happens to be. Like, I'm having a feeling that I don't like.
That's
And
right.
to stop myself from having that feeling, I just criticize you.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Love that. So, okay. So let's talk. What do you do? If you tend to be critical, that's your, you know, look, we all have our edge. We all have our edge. That's your edge, right? Love yourself. No big deal. Love yourself, right? And this probably isn't serving you. And so how do they start to change it? What are some quick tips we can give them to start doing it a little bit different? And I
Well,
love
I love what Dee just said. That
love
was a great, like shifting the lens
yeah,
completely, and knowing that you're having a feeling, and that's really the issue. Not that the other person is wearing bad colors.
right. It's not that they're wrong or they need to do anything. It's like it's bringing angst into you.
And
Mhm.
so
And to
that
recognize that first.
Mhm.
And that'll slow you down a little bit.
Mhm.
That'll slow you down because your clothing style isn't the world's clothing style. And nor does it have to be.
Mhm.
Nor does it have to be.
Mhm.
Okay. What else?
Well, I think what you just said, that pause,
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
like, just because you're having the thought does not mean it should come out of your mouth.
Right. Right.
Very
Yeah.
difficult concept for me, but
I was going to say very difficult concept for us women that love just
because like you
talk.
were saying, Arlene, like, but clearly I need to help you, you
Yes.
know, and I think that's that societal thing. So it's kind of like, what if nobody needs my help and I could just pause
Yeah.
and go,
Mhm.
like, really, do I really need to say this?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Love that. Okay. So pause, realize it's not about you.
Mhm.
Um, and
First realize that tendency to be critical. I'm not sure how aware we are, because it seems to be so much part of how we are in the world. But that's been something that we could do. We could criticize. We can't be directly angry, but we can be critical.
yeah,
So I think first, again, we have to become aware.
get conscious. It
Become
always starts right.
always become aware that we're critical.
And how it shows up for you and who you
Yes.
tend to be critical with. Are you across the board? Is it about particular, you know, I don't know, issues in your life or particular people? Notice that. The critiquing also, really be careful about critiquing children. It's a big one. It's
Mhm.
really big because how children hear it
Oh,
and see it is that they're not enough. They're not good enough. They're not smart enough. They're not fast enough. They don't try hard enough. They don't blah, blah. I mean, I wish I had watched this so much closer when my kids were little, you know, but you know, put another quarter in the therapy jar, I guess, right? But you know, it really is, as parents, we have to let them make mistakes, let them color outside the lines, let them dress in funky clothes. And you know, like, I think too often if you struggle with being critical, you think other people represent you.
Mhm.
They don't. You represent you. Don't try to tweak them so that they're a good representation of you.
Mhm.
So yeah, so again, just along the line of getting conscious of how that criticism shows up with your kids, with your partners, with at work, with, you know, friends, just like notice where it's showing up and how, and
Mhm.
use that
I,
pause.
I want to add the thing about kids because I became very aware that the way a child hears the parent,
Yes.
it's so amplified. Like what you may say is just like
Mhm.
doesn't have nearly as much weight to them. It it takes over. They really buy the whole thing, and it stays with them, and it's extremely. It could be extremely damaging to their
Yeah.
self-esteem.
Yeah. And
A
even
great,
the most
sorry.
loving of parents
Mhm.
doesn't mean you're
A
a bad.
great, I'm sorry,
Go
a
ahead.
great movie to watch around the idea of the not very beneficial impact of criticism is to watch Encanto. I
Oh,
just watched it last night.
oh, really?
It is totally about like the pressures of how all the kids had to be
Mm.
and how it actually crumbles.
Mm.
And it takes the
But
crumbling to
in Anko,
Encanto,
oh,
Encanto. Mhm.
E-N-O.
It's great, but it certainly has the message
Right.
by the end of the pressure of the criticism.
Criticism. Can you spell that one more time?
Encanto.
Perfect. All right, there you go. Okay, so recognize your tendency, also then pause and notice that it's your thought and your feeling. It's not about their piece.
Mhm.
And when possible, like don't speak it. Slow it down. Like ask yourself, is this something that is necessary? Is this necessary for their safety? Is this necessary for their well-being? Is it okay that they, you know, draw outside the lines? Is it okay that my husband is not wearing a sweater tonight? You know, just slow it down and see if you can start putting that pause on that criticism. The one other thing I would say is for a week, just practice as much as you can looking at the positives and stating the positives and looking at the positives and stating the positive. If you don't like, you know, how your children, you don't like their sneakers, be like, oh, I love that shirt. If you don't like their hair, be like, oh, I love that you took a shower today. You know, like really try to change your lens and play with it and see how difficult that is for you.
Along with that, thank yous. I tell people do that all the time. Like people are like, well, that's just their chore. They should do that. And I'm like, that doesn't mean they don't get a thank you.
Right.
But again, it's that changing the lens from what you didn't do to what you did do.
Love it. Love it.
and ask yourself if you're able to stop, or even if it slips out and then you notice it afterwards. Ask yourself, why did you do it? What was behind that? What did you want to accomplish by that criticism?
Yeah.
Did it work?
Yeah.
Did it get you what you wanted?
Yeah, I love that. And what was the fear driving it? What was like, what's driving that? Love it. All right, there you go. So give it a shot. Try any of these suggestions. If you tend to be critical, usually comes from family of origin. So love yourself, have compassion for yourself, and try to not pass it on to the next generation. Slow yourself down, and you have, 4 different options on how to start working this. Let us know how it goes. Let us know where you're stuck. Questions, anything, we'd love to hear it. And if this podcast was helpful, share it. If you have a question, drop a question in the comment section, and tune in next time. Thank you again for joining us this week. And always remember, you have the power to change the world for women by changing how you walk in it. I challenge you to choose one way to stand in your grounded, powerful strength this week and be part of the ripple of change.